We've seen many waves of unrest in Iran over the years: 2009, 2019, 2022. Each had its own trigger, from election fraud to fuel prices. But according to Major Alexander Grinberg from the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, JISS, what we are witnessing right now is fundamentally different. He calls it a crisis of economic calculation. What does that mean for the average person on the street?
It's a profound concept. In any functioning society, there's an economic horizon. Whether you're a baker, a tech worker, or a merchant in the bazaar, you can predict, to some extent, the value of your money, the price of flour, and your taxes for the next month. By the end of 2025, that horizon in Iran completely vanished. The rial has collapsed to such a degree that trade has become mathematically irrational. Sellers literally cannot price their goods because by the time they sell an item, the money they receive might not be enough to restock it.
And the numbers backing this up are staggering. We aren't just talking about a slight dip in purchasing power.
Not at all. We're looking at an official inflation rate of 42.2%. But the real killer is the price of food, which has spiked by 72%. This is no longer about luxury, it's about survival. To make matters worse, the proposed budget for 2026-27 includes a 62% increase in the tax burden. The population sees this as a desperate state-led liquidity grab. The regime is trying to extract what's left of the people's savings to fund its own survival while the economy burns.
So this explains why the Bazari, the traditional merchant class who were once a pillar of stability, have joined the students and workers.
Exactly. When the economy stops being computable, the social contract dissolves. If you cannot plan for next week, you have no stake in the current system. This is why the protests shifted so rapidly from economic complaints to political slogans. People have realized that the current political course is incompatible with physical survival. The slogan, "Neither Gaza nor Lebanon, I give my life for Iran," perfectly captures this rage. They see their wealth being burned in foreign adventures while they can't afford bread at home.
So, in Grinberg's view, this isn't just another riot that can be calmed with minor concessions.
No, he argues that this is a systemic fracture. The regime has lost its ability to calculate and plan its own future, and as a result, it can no longer guarantee any form of life for its citizens. When the state can't even provide a stable currency for basic trade, it ceases to function as a state. This economic black hole is what's fueling the absolute fearlessness we see on the streets today.
We've discussed the economic collapse, but there is another critical factor accelerating this uprising: the regime's total loss of prestige on the international stage. The recent 12-day military campaign against Israel seems to have been a turning point in the public's perception. How did a short military conflict have such a devastating internal effect?
It exposed the regime's military helplessness. For decades, the Ayatollahs justified their grip on power in the country's poverty by claiming they were building a shield of resistance. But the 12-day war showed that despite the billions spent, they were unable to protect their interests or their proxies. The fall of Syria and the crushing defeat of Hezbollah shattered the myth of Iranian regional hegemony. People are now openly asking, why are we starving to fund wars that you are losing anyway? This is why the slogan, "Neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life for Iran," has moved from a fringe chant to a national anthem of the resistance.
There's also the psychological impact of events outside of the Middle East. The news of the U.S. capturing the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro seems to have sent shockwaves through the halls of power in Tehran.
It was a Caracas shock for the Iranian elite. Before this, some pragmatists in Tehran still hoped they could do business or negotiate a settlement with the Trump administration. But the bold American raid that snatched Maduro destroyed those hopes. It proved that the current U.S. leadership is willing to take direct, high-risk actions against dictators. High-ranking Iranian officials are now terrified that they might be next. If Maduro wasn't safe in his own palace, why should they be? This fear is reflected in the rhetoric coming from both sides. We are seeing a very aggressive stance from Washington and a defensive, almost panicked response from Tehran. Exactly. When Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Senator Lindsey Graham use the phrase, "Make Iran great again," they are sending a clear signal. Iran's greatness is only possible after the Ayatollahs are gone. They're directly telling the Iranian people that help is on the way and that the long nightmare is ending. In response, Ali Larijani, the Secretary of the Supreme National Security Council, admitted that the country is in a hot phase of war with no ceasefire in sight. By blaming Israel for the internal chaos, the regime is trying to use its old playbook, but it's no longer working. The people see the regime's external military failure as a sign of internal, terminal weakness.
As the protests reach their 14th day, the regime's response has shifted from local policing to what they are calling a hot phase of war. The supreme leader, Khamenei, has placed the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, on a state of unprecedented combat readiness. But it is not just the Guard anymore, is it?
No, the mask of civil order has completely fallen. For the first time, the regular army has been officially mobilized to support the IRGC and the police. The commanders of the army have publicly stated they are ready to crush the rioters. To justify this level of force, the general prosecutor, Mohammad Moahedi Azad, issued a terrifying decree. Any participant in the protests can now be labeled as Mohareb, which translates to an enemy of Allah. Under their legal system, this is a charge that carries the death penalty.
This seems like a desperate attempt to regain the fear factor that they have clearly lost.
It is exactly that. But they are also playing a very specific propaganda game. The state-run media is constantly broadcasting images from the city of Marvdasht, where they claim several Basij members were burned alive last night. Whether these are real events or staged provocations, the goal is the same: to tell their loyalists and the international community that they aren't killing peaceful protesters, but fighting bloodthirsty terrorists. They are flooding the airwaves with videos of captured female revolutionaries found with handguns to prove that the population is armed and dangerous.
Yet, despite the threat of the gallows and the sight of tanks in the streets, the movement shows no signs of retreating.
Because for the people, the alternative is worse. The regime is trying to legitimize a massacre by using religious terms like enemy of Allah. But when you have over 150 locations in open revolt, you can't hang everyone. The IRGC remains fanatically loyal to the regime. They know that if the Ayatollahs fall, they will be the first to face justice, so they are prepared to drown the country in blood to survive. The question now is whether the regular army soldiers will actually fire on their own families when the final order is given.
The international dimension of this crisis has taken a dramatic turn with the latest reports from the White House. According to the WSJ, the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration has already held preliminary discussions regarding potential targets inside Iran. This isn't just rhetoric anymore. It is active military planning.
Exactly. While officials clarify that there's no consensus yet and no military hardware has been moved, the mere fact that these discussions are happening and being leaked is a massive psychological blow to the regime. They are considering large-scale airstrikes on several Iranian military targets if the killing of protesters continues. This is the U.S. signaling that they are no longer just watching with concern.
We also have to consider what is being called the Maduro effect. How did the capture of the Venezuelan dictator in Caracas change the atmosphere in Tehran?
It destroyed the last remnants of the regime's confidence. For high-ranking Iranian officials, the image of American special forces snatching a dictator like Nicolas Maduro from his own territory is a terrifying precedent. It tells them that their sovereignty and their bunkers might not protect them from a similar fate. Some pragmatists in the Iranian government had hoped they could negotiate with the Trump administration, but that hope has evaporated.
This is reflected in the very specific language coming from Washington. We are hearing slogans that directly echo the president's domestic platform.
Yes, the phrase, "Make Iran great again," is being used by Senator Lindsey Graham and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. This is a very clear signal to the Iranian people. the United States is officially backing a future without the current leadership. Graham even told the Iranian people that their long nightmare is ending and that help is on the way.
But as we know, the IRGC remains fanatically loyal. Do they see these threats as a reason to back down or to escalate their brutality?
For now, they are escalating. The regime is trying to frame this as a war against the US and Israel to keep their units from defecting. But the Maduro effect means that every general now has to wonder if he will end up in a prison cell in Florida or worse. Trump has been very clear, if they kill protesters, they will pay in hell. The regime is trapped between their fear of the people and their fear of an American heavy blow.
We are now on the 14th day of this uprising, and the map of Iran is a sea of red. We're talking about more than 150 cities and towns in open revolt. This is no longer just a few disconnected urban protests. It is a nationwide collapse of central authority.
It is truly unprecedented. Take the city of Yazd as a primary example. Reports indicate that this major administrative center completely fell out of the control of security forces yesterday. When regional capitals of that size become no-go zones for the regime, the entire system of provincial governance begins to shatter.
And Tehran remains the focal point of the most intense violence, spreading even to the most unexpected districts.
Tehran is effectively a patchwork of battle zones. We are seeing massive crowds in Tajrish, which is the most affluent and prestigious part of the city, showing that the rebellion has reached the upper classes. Meanwhile, in Tehran Pars, the violence has escalated to the point where protesters successfully burned an IRGC armored vehicle. When the population is no longer intimidated by heavy armor, the regime's primary tool of survival, pure fear, is officially gone.
There has also been a very high-profile elimination in the city of Zahedan that has sent shockwaves through the security apparatus.
Yes, the killing of Farajullah Shushtari. He was a high-ranking figure in the Basij and the son of the famous IRGC general Nurali Shushtari. This is a massive symbolic and tactical blow. What makes this even more significant is that the regime didn't just blame local insurgents this time. They officially accused the Mossad of the assassination. It's a move intended to frame the uprising as a foreign invasion, but it only highlights how vulnerable the regime's elite have become on their own soil.
We are also seeing very grim reports and footage coming from the south, specifically from the city of Marvdasht.
The regime is heavily promoting footage from Marvdasht, where they claim several Basij members were burned alive. Whether these are real acts of desperate fury or staged provocations, they are being used to justify the shoot-to-kill orders. But from Kerman to Yazd, the sheer volume of people on the streets has simply overwhelmed the security forces. We've seen multiple videos of IRGC buses and administrative buildings in flames. On this 14th day, the revolution isn't just holding its ground, it is expanding its territory.
Beyond the smoke of the street battles, a parallel war is being fought in the digital and political spheres. We are seeing a coordinated effort to provide a viable alternative to the current regime. This is no longer just a leaderless revolt. Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah who was overthrown in 1979, has taken a much more active and commanding role.
Pahlavi has officially called for 2 more nights of nationwide demonstrations, but his most significant move is calling for a general strike. He is specifically targeting the backbone of the Iranian economy, the oil, gas, and energy sectors. If these workers join the protest, the regime's ability to fund its security apparatus will vanish almost overnight. Pahlavi has also hinted at his intention to return to Iran, which is a massive symbolic challenge to the Ayatollahs.
At the same time, we are seeing a very sophisticated cyber war. A hacker group known as Handala has made some explosive claims regarding the internal security of the country.
Yes, the group claims to have doxed and revealed the identities of 600 individuals they allege are connected to the Mossad. According to the hackers, these people were responsible for turning the protests into a threat to national security. While this could be regime-sponsored counterintelligence, the sheer scale of the data dump shows how porous the regime's information security has become. The digital front is just as chaotic as the physical one.
And we cannot ignore the cultural explosion. Music and art have always been the heartbeat of Iranian resistance, and this time is no different. Musicians are releasing tracks that have become instant anthems. One song, titled "Swear by the Glory of Fire," is already being used as the soundtrack for the revolution. This cultural resistance is crucial because it keeps the morale of the people high, even when the internet is cut and the IRGC is at the door. It creates a shared identity for the new Iran.
As we look at the situation after 14 days, the general prosecutor is threatening the death penalty for enemies of Allah, and the army is officially joining the crackdown. Is there a way back for the regime? Structurally, the regime is a failing system. Whether they crush this specific wave of protests or not, the social contract is dead. The combination of an uncalculable economy, a loss of regional prestige, and a population that is now openly armed and organized means the Islamic Republic is in its terminal phase. As the protesters in the streets of Tehran and Yazd are making clear, the long nightmare is ending and they are ready for the dawn.